しかなし君マンティ歌でみそりさりうと
It's turned on, so we just have to say. Can someone say into a mic that will start momentarily?
Okay. Oh. Okay.
はいたい。生一時なといびしが We start with Okinawan time, so please have a little wait. マッチョ的ミソリをもうちょっとうちなタイムで始めやびら。
Oi, gente, para aqueles que estão no Brasil, a gente vai começar no horário okinawano, que é sempre um pouquinho atrasado, que também é o horário brasileiro, né? Então já estamos acostumados, mas daqui a pouco começamos então.
And I brought some candies, chinsko, uchina cookie. So please have some. Please have many. あ、じゃあこっち。Do you need laptop or something? That's okay, ne? No. So this is one. This is yours.
ありがとう。
And then this is for Maria's. Yeah, yeah.
うちらパン
is perfect.
So, okay. I think they're waiting for me to open that. So, let's see here.
And then people will come in as they come in. We're starting Uchina time. People arrive on Uchina time.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And it's being live
Yeah.
stream, so we're chilling.
Cool. Let's see, we have Riku and then Victoria. Okay.
The only thing is, I'm gonna go ask for some water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eh, あーちゃん、私、リーク。
Because you will talk first, maybe I'll give it to you. There are going to be spots where like we advance through. Okay. Cool. It's just forward. Yeah, or backwards. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Shall we begin?
Okay. It's really high.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start.
Mariko-san?
Yeah.
I don't know where to look, but yeah. Okay. I will just talk very quiet. Okay. Shall we? Okay, hello everyone. Hi, Tai. Thank you so much for joining us. Wanne Mariko Yaibin. My name is Mariko, and I am so grateful to be here on behalf of the ACSILs delegation that has attended the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. We are all really thrilled to be here, so thank you. We are guests. We acknowledge that we are guests on this land. It's Lenape land. So thank you for hosting us, and a very heartfelt thank you to the folks at People's Forum for hosting us for this event. Ippen ni he debiru. Thank you. And welcome to the folks that are here in person as well as online. We have about 80 people that are registered to watch online. So for all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us. We know that we are a diasporic population. And so we have folks from Okinawa, from America, from Hawaii, from Brazil. Thank you all for being here and for your support. And before we begin, I'd like to begin with a short prayer. So please pray with me. Sariu toto a toto, ukami uyafafuji unige sabira, chuya yukaruhi masaruhi, revitalizations of the Ryukyu debiru, agai nukami kanashi. Nukami kanashi. Iri no ukami kanashi. Nishi no ukami kanashi. Shiriguafu debiru ukami kanashi, uyafafuji kanashi, mimanti utabimi sori. Mimanti utabimi sori. Sari utoto atoto. Thank you. And now we will pass to Riku, who will lead us in a prayer and an opening.
Poyo tirashus matiga dakiyoni no kuni guni somano sumazuma tirya gari usui Magaya gomi ushugamayu ya ani bishidu darayo.
One more. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Riku. We will now do Tinsagu no Hana. We have the lyrics up on the screen, so please join us. We will send these three. Hopefully folks are watching online. Please join us as well. Amazing. Yeah.
Tinsagu no hanaya chimi sa chimi sumiti uya no yushi goto ya shimu ni sumiri uya no yushi goto や血胸に染み入り一たらんことや注意たりがになり影に雪なちるうちゆわたらうちなちるうちゆわたら高原まやちん磨かにはみずびす朝ゆちむみがちうちゆわたら朝ゆちむみがちうちゆわたら
Oh, it's me.
Yes, go ahead. Next up, we have Lex McClellan-Ufugusuku, who will be speaking on Ryukyu history.
Oh, yeah. All right. Haitai gusio chi ganabira wanne McClellan-Ufugusuku Lex yaibin yuta saragutuni ge sabira. Hi, my name is Lex McClellan-Ufugusuku. I know a lot of people in this room already, but for those of you I don't know, it's so nice to meet you all. I'm glad that you're here. I'm mixed race Uchinanchu, originally from South Bay, San Diego. For those of you who don't know where the South Bay is, that's the zone between the border with Mexico and Naval Base San Diego. And so I'm adding that in here because it's going to add a little bit of context for how I came to my articulation of Ryukyuan identity. I think most of us who are in this room who are Uchinanchu, who are Ryukyuan, know it's really hard to kind of explain to people who we are sometimes. And so I'm going to go through some of the historical documents, not because I expect everyone to remember every single thing I'm going to talk about in the documents and use them to our advantage, but just because I really want to emphasize and legitimize people's struggle in how to articulate ourselves. I know it's hard for me, and it's only gotten harder throughout the years, so I'm hoping that with some explanation, it can help us feel settled in why we don't know these things, why we have a hard time articulating them. That being said, my Uchinanchu roots are through my mom and my obachan in Tsukazan village, which is in Haebarucho. My hi-obachan was also from Kochinda, so the south part of Okinawa. My obachan was actually born on Tinian, which is in the Northern Mariana Islands near Guam. Her parents moved to Tinian before World War II in about the 1920s, so all of her and her siblings were born on the island. She then lived with her siblings and her mother in a refugee internment camp for 2 years before being repatriated to Okinawa in 1956, December of 1956. And I consider myself very lucky. My obachan was very adamant that we were from Okinawa, even if she didn't have the words to describe colonialism or indigeneity. English is her third language. She always was very adamant that you're from Okinawa. She tried to take me and my sister back to Okinawa as much as possible, so we knew our family, we knew our roots, we knew where we were from. And I know not everyone gets that. I also added that I'm a high school boys lacrosse coach and a collegiate women's lacrosse coach. Those of you who do know me know that that's like my first job I like to uplift. And I add it here because it's really important. Like, those kids to me are the reason that I feel like I'm able to do the really hard work of academia. Like, being able to take a break several hours a day to go be on the field and to teach the creator's game. It's a Haudenosaunee game to students, to high schoolers, to college students is really important, not only for my mental health, but also for thinking through my own positionality. And like it says at the bottom, I'm a PhD candidate in history at UC Santa Cruz, which I'm just going to plug them all here. There's a lot of us, Uchinanshu in the diaspora, who are really trying to go through the academy, trying to get graduate degrees. And so hopefully in the not so far future, there will be more of us able to be the authorities, quote unquote, in the academic sense, on our own history, on our own culture. And so really quickly, like Nozomi Nakaganeku, Daniel Iwama, Dane Nakama, Micah Mizukami, Alice Kurima Newberry, and I'm so sorry if I'm forgetting anyone else, but like, we're out here, we're trying, we're gonna get there eventually. We're coming for all the jobs, but it's a work in progress. Oh, this is my Obachan and my little sister. So I have a couple guiding, they're not questions, but I didn't get to proofread my slides. So guiding points for today. So why might Ryukyuans not identify as Ryukyuan to others, specifically for people who don't know where the Ryukyus are, or who are not Ryukyuans? One of the explanations I feel like a lot of our parents told us was, it's just easier to say we're Japanese. I hear that a lot from my peers. Maybe our grandparents, our parents, or even you/us, were educated to believe that Japan's empire was over, that it ended when Japan lost World War II. And then there's also the problem that no one actually knows what Okinawa is, let alone where Okinawa or the Ryukyus is. For those of us joining online, the explanation I like to give to people is it's the island chain between Japan and Taiwan, so locating our geography rather than our nationality first. And what does the history say, and how can this help us understand why our history and our identity is so difficult to explain to others? And as a historian, I've been lucky/burdened with being in the archive for much of the last 6 years. And what I have learned is that our identity as Ryukyu people was complicated on purpose. Spoiler alert, it's so Japan could have a good relationship with the US and vice versa. And so it's complicated. There's a reason we have a hard time explaining it, and that's because our citizenship, our nationality, were not broadcast to our people, let alone our people in the diaspora during the US period. So end takeaways, our history is unique, and it's complicated. And ultimately, it's complicated for a reason, and it's okay for those of us who are still on our journey, trying to figure out how to identify ourselves. So a quick timeline of Ryukyuan history. In 1879, the Ryukyu kingdom was annexed forcibly by Japan. And many of us like to think that the US period started in 1945. The US period is the period right after World War II, where our islands were taken by the US and we were administered as a US military colony, though not in name. That actually is a bit of a late date. In my research, I've found that starting even in 1943, even before World War II was halfway through, folks in the State Department were already deciding whether or not to separate us from Japan to keep us for the US. In 1950, the United States Civil Administration of the Ryukyu Islands, or the military government, was established. In 1952, the peace treaty with Japan was signed, and that peace treaty officially severed us from Japanese administration. And in 1954, there was a court case in Hawaii, which we'll get to in a moment, that really talked about Ryukyu citizenship. And in 1972, the Ryukyus were reverted to Japanese control. And so the time period we're living in now is often referred to as the dual colonial period. We still have 32 US military bases, and we have Japanese government hegemony over our islands, and that's really affecting our self-determination. And so during this time period, since I'm thinking especially after 1950, but really 1954, after Shiroma versus the United States, what are the Ryukyus politically? What do they look like in international law? And what are Ryukyuans? Are we Americans? Are we Japanese? Are we Ryukyuans? So that's what the rest of this is going to be about. So the document I was talking about earlier, the Bureau of United Nations Affairs document, was from 1943, and importantly, it was trying to figure out whether or not it was in the US's best interest to sever us from the Empire of Japan. Japan was going to lose Taiwan after the war. It was going to lose the Northern Mariana Islands. It was going to lose all of those big sea colonial projects that were officially colonies of Japan. The question then was, because we were annexed in 1879 and called a prefecture, whether or not we would also be severed from the Empire of Japan. Because we were governed like a colony, but we weren't named a colony. And so this document ultimately decides that there's three options. You can give the Ryukyus to China, you can give the Ryukyu, or let the Ryukyus stay with Japan under conditional retention. So they would be Japanese, but with laws and special considerations. Or the Ryukyu Islands could be taken by the US, and specifically for their strategic value. So the location of the Ryukyu Islands, which was the way that it was Romanized at the time, thwart the approaches to the China coast and give them great strategic importance. This strategic importance is ultimately going to be seen in documents for the next 40, 50, 60 years, even today. In 1951, the peace treaty with Japan was signed, and it was enacted in 1952. But so Article 3 of the peace treaty with Japan is explicitly about Okinawa, and it officially severs the Ryukyu Islands from Japan proper, and says that eventually in the future, the United States might move to have the islands placed under UN trusteeship with the US as administrative authority. Ultimately, it never did so, but this was the language of Article 3. In the meantime, until trusteeship was acted upon by the US was given, quote, the right to exercise all and any powers of administration, legislation, and jurisdiction over the territory and inhabitants of these islands, and including their territorial waters. This was following the establishment of the civil administration in 1950, so there was already a military government in place ready to administer the islands after the peace treaty. And so during this time period, what even are the Ryukyu Islands? And this, I think, is when it gets complicated. For those of us now, it's really hard to explain what the Ryukyus are because we're not considered a colony. We are not a territory. We're not a possession. We're not a trusteeship. And we're not an occupied territory because the war is officially over now. And so what they end up doing is just not giving us a label. We are illegible in international law during this time period. There's a lot of explanations for what we are not, but, quote, the interpretation and intent of Article 3 remains to be officially clarified for almost 27 years. They put off putting a label on the Ryukyu Islands in purpose, so it can sort of slip through this gray zone of international law. So in 1954, now we'll move into nationality because I think that's the other point of international law. You have political status and then the people's political status. In 1954 in Hawaii, a migrant from Okinawa, I believe he was from Onaga, moved to Hawaii, and under this time period, the Alien Registration Act required that you inform the Attorney General of any change in your address if you were not a citizen or national of the United States. And so this person, Shiroma Ushi, was charged with violating that act because they did not send their new address in. So they sued, saying, actually, I, as a Ryukyuan, am American, and so I'm not an alien, and I shouldn't have to send my address to the Attorney General because I'm not an alien. So this goes to the district court in Hawaii. and stumps them for a little bit, because now an American court is trying to also figure out what the Ryukyu Islands are, what citizenship Ryukyuans have. And ultimately, they deliberate for a long time, but they decide that it's necessary to try to figure this out. And the avenue that they take to do this is the question of sovereignty. Where does sovereignty lie? Is it American? Is it Japanese? Is it something else? And so they say a novel defense was interjected at trial that raised the question of whether the defendant was even an alien in January of 1954. The defendant ingeniously argued that because of the events occurring subsequent to World War II, Okinawa became a possession of the United States. We know from that earlier document it was not technically a possession according to the United States. Thus, being a native of Okinawa, although residing in Hawaii, the defendant became a national of the United States. And therefore, because he was a national, he could not be an alien, he could not be charged with violating the Alien Registration Act. And the court goes back and forth for a long time, trying to figure out where sovereignty is. And the court ultimately decides that he is an alien and that Ryukyuans are not nationals of the United States because of this phrase that John Foster Dulles said at the end of the Peace Treaty Convention, that although the US would assume all administrative, jurisdictional, legislative rights over the Ryukyus, residual sovereignty remained with Japan. What that actually meant is not clear, and the court makes that very clear in this particular argument, but they land on they're not US nationals. So, to clarify, the Ryukyu Islands are not a possession, they're not a trusteeship, they're not a territory, they're not a state, they're not an official colony, they're not under wartime occupation, but they're also not nationals of the United States. So what does citizenship and nationality look like at this point? This hilarious document, if you would look at the whole thing, if I didn't crop it, at the top I've handwritten in red, wow, this is hilarious and crazy. I decided to chop that. The terms nationality and citizenship cannot be applied to the status of Ryukyuans. The status of a Ryukyuan has been accomplished without reference to nationality and citizenship. And so the question I think many of us have as a large diaspora community is, if we don't have citizenship, we don't have nationality, what kind of passports do we have? And the answer was, we don't technically need passports to travel during this time period. Ryukyuans, because of residual sovereignty, could receive Japanese passports, but only if they went to Japan. In order to go to Japan during this time period, you needed to get a Japan travel document, which was issued by the US military government. Or you could be issued a certificate of identity, and that would allow you to bypass having a passport if the US negotiated your travel with whatever country you were going to end up in. So in the case of Australia, the case of Bolivia, many of our family members did not travel with Japanese passports. Many of them went directly from Ryukyu to their destination countries because the US military government negotiated migratory agreements between these other countries so that they could circumvent Japan. And all of this really was to preserve the relationship between Japan and the United States. During this time period, I'll wrap up, I promise. During this time period, Japan was rebounding from World War II, and the US really facilitated that economic resurgence in order to bring it in as an ally. However, the Ryukyus were still a sticking point in that relationship. And so if Ryukyuans could go to Japan freely, get Japanese passports, Ryukyuans would consider themselves more Japanese at this time period and thus want reversion faster. So I didn't have time to put it up there. The US actually issues a declaration about passport-free travel and says that the State Department of the United States will be responsible for Ryukyuans traveling abroad on certificates of identity at this time, and we won't tell Japan because this will be a sticking point in the relationship. So in summary, it's complicated and it's really difficult to explain. I don't have an easy answer for you. I think many of us are on our own journey of how we explain Ryukyuan-ness. For me, I use that geographical terminology because I think it really, you can't argue with geography. You can argue with nationality, you can argue with politics. You can't argue with the land and waters that we come from. And so that's where I choose to start. But in summary, the Ryukyuans became Japanese imperial subjects in 1879. The Ryukyus were then controlled by the United States until 1972. But the Ryukyu Islands were not a colony, territory, trusteeship, or anything legible in international law. As such, after 1954, Ryukyuans were not US nationals, nor were they US citizens. They could get Japanese passports, but they were not technically considered Japanese citizens because they were living in the Ryukyus. But they were eligible to travel to Japan, which was only possible by getting permission from the US military government. And from 1954, USCAR negotiated migration treaties with several countries in Latin America and throughout the world so that Japanese passports could be circumvented during this time period. I know that's not like the most satisfying ending, but I hope that this validates your confusion in explaining yourselves as well. All right, Nihei de Vitan.
Thank you so much, Lex. We will now pass it over to Victor Kinjo, who will introduce the Nuchi-no-Miji, the water issues that are happening in the Ryukyus currently. Perfect. So now it is Shinako Shinchi who will be speaking on the water quality issues in the Ryukyus. Thank you.
Okay, I introduced about the film. This is a documentary film made by QAB. The director Natsuko Shimabukuro is talking about the water contamination issue concerned with PFAS, the so-called the forever chemical. This is we can share the link. This is like a 1 hour documentary film, but we can show it everything today. But we want to share the first part.
This one. This one?
No. 前が
Yeah.
Yeah.
The video is
This one.
No,
あれ
this one, not the one.
違う
That's Victor's.
the Nuchi-no-Miji?
ぬちのみじ
I'm gonna check.
Yeah.
So
Later.
yeah. So for those of you watching, I will drop it in the chat. It's a full-length video, the documentary Nuchi-no-Miji. We had hoped to play the first 5 minutes to give you a little bit of a framing on it. I think it's actually a different video. So we will pop that in the YouTube. Okay. So thank you so much for bearing with our technical difficulties. So we will now move to Shinako speaking on language revitalization, and then we will come back to the video. So Shinako-san, onegaisabira.
はい This one? 右
Okay. To the right.
はいたいぐすうようちゅうがなびらちゅうや平米と面相ちきみそうち一平にフェーデービルわねうちなからゆしりてちゃびたんウェイがしなこんでいやびんみしとというたびみせびりようたい Hello everyone, thank you very much for having us here today, and then thank you very much for coming on. And my name is Shinako Oyakawa from Okinawa, Ryukyu, and I'm going to talk about the title is different, but sorry. The indigenous movement and from in and from Ryukyus in terms of language revitalization. Okay, this is a Ryukyuan language. Ryukyuan language had some proto-language as Japanese, but it's not Japanese. It's different from Japanese. If there is a Japanese, it's like a Japanese language, and Ryukyuan language, it's separate language. But after the forced annexation, Japanese scholar tried to understand Ryukyuan language as the dialect of Japanese. So now still a lot of people say like this is a dialect of Japanese, but if you see it, in the linguistic point of view, it's so different. And so it says like Ryukyuan and Japanese have greater distance than English and German. And within Ryukyuan language, this is like the Achan just told, like, Japan and then Taiwan, we are the island chain. So we have so many different languages in our island chain. And this is a picture of Japan, so-called Honshu mainland. And then the red one is the island chain of the Ryukyus. So if we, put it over the Japanese map, and then how you can tell like how wide the language, are, separate, and then it's like almost 1,000 kilometers long. So it's really diverse. If we say Nife Debiru in Okinawa Island for thank you, but if you go to Miyako Island, that's Tandiga Tandi, and then Yonaguni Fugarasa, and then Arigata Samariotan for the Amami. So it's really different. We cannot even communicate each other with the, the language. So language diversity is really, really rich in Okinawa Ryukyu Islands. But that's, our language, but it's, we don't use it nowadays. The policies after annexation of Ryukyuan nation, it's like there is a school, imperial education started in Okinawa. So that those who speak the language has to wear the dialect cards. You say like, you use the language. So that's a punishment, big punishment. And then school teacher try to educate students as a, like a Nippana Nihonjin, like a true Japanese. So like all those like a discrimination against Ryukyuan people, and then education, and then those are the situation in Ryukyu. And then also in 1945, the Battle of Okinawa came, and that, the Japanese soldiers did, order in Okinawa, anyone who, speak the Okinawan language is considered a spy and then executed during the Battle of Okinawa. We have so many testimonies about that. So if you speak the language, you can get killed. That was the situation during the Battle of Okinawa. And, even after the war, and then that's, again, the U.S. occupation, and then reversion movement to Japan, but Japan is not our mother, our native our country, but still that's the U.S. occupation was really, really brutal. If you get killed, or if you get raped, or if you stolen something, accident, many things like a contamination, accidents, and then many military related issue is not. Even went to the court, or the Okinawan police cannot touch anything. So the reversion to Japan was one of the choice. So again, the dialect term came because we want human rights. So if we go under the Japanese constitution, maybe we can solve this problem. So during the reversion movement, again, this language tag appeared, and then people thought it's really good to learn Japanese, to be good Japanese, to get, to access to the human rights. So the Ryukyuan language, educational opportunity was totally lost, and then it has meaningful, role in the community and the family, but it's gradually going down. So this is one of the picture from the Okinawa archive. It says like, I use Hogen, I use the dialect, so I'm bad. So you have to wear it all the time. This is a testimony from Miss All. I did the interview. She said, I grew up around the market in Naha, where all the business was conducted in Okinawan language. Even at home, my grandmother spoke only Okinawan, so we spoke Okinawan at home. I was a very talkative child to the point of being scolded for being quiet. But once I entered elementary school, I was in Japanese environment for the first time, And so I never spoke a word at school because I couldn't speak Japanese. She was born in 1954, but at the time still we have the environment of using the local, indigenous languages. But those who could speak the language at the time had a traumatic experience. And then she mentioned about her situational reticence, and then suffering and stressing, loss of value for native language, low self-esteem, and then trauma, etc. This is the survey conducted by Okinawa Prefecture government, and then the Ryukyu Simpo, and then this is a question, say like, can you use Shimakutuba Ryukyuan language? And this red one, it's like I can speak the language and then also understand the language. And this orange one say I can understand, I can hear it, but I can't speak. And then yellow one is like a partially, I can understand maybe half of the language. And this green one is I can't understand and then also I can't speak the language. So it's 2006, like almost like a 50, over 50 people say like, yes, I can understand and I can speak the language, but it's declined, dialectally. I mean, 2021 is only 25% of people say like, I understand and I can speak the language. How drastically, dropped the number is. This is also another survey by the Okinawa Prefecture government. And how much, Ryukyuan language do you use? And I use Ryukyuan language mainly. That's only 1.7%. And, maybe like for greeting, same as Japanese is this one. And this is only like, for greeting and I don't use much. And this one, red one, is I don't use it at all. So this is the situation now of the Ryukyuan languages. And only 2% of those in their studies have a good understanding of Ryukyuan language. It's compared to 43% of those over 70 years old. So it's really dropped the number that the language shift is going on. It's only like 2 generations, and then it's the situation is totally different now. But we have some efforts to, towards the language revitalization. This is my children's after school I run in Okinawa. The Riku is helping us. And then we, this in the like a public education system, we don't have any chance to learn our language, our history. So for after school program, I take them to the, to the ocean, to take them to the historic site. This is something we have to learn because we can never learn at school. And then we also, tell about our music, history, and then language. We have twice a week, we have like a uchinaguchi lessons, and it's really, fun time with children. And besides that, like we have so many challenges, but it's not really like, so it's like, for like some events or some time, but it's not well organized, well planned by the government or anything like that. It's more like a grassroots or private section. So challenges of Ryukyuan language revitalization, we have a perspective from language education, how to maintain the linguistic diversity or absence of notation, lack of dictionaries and grammar books, and aging of native speakers and introduced to the school education. We have to talk about this. And at a sociolinguistic perspective, why, the language Okinawa is declining like this, or what's the Ryukyuan language itself, who was speaking Ryukyuan languages, why should we learn Ryukyuan language, and what are the language rights is. Those kind of things are missing. We technically talk about the, how to make the word book or, how to teach at school. But sociolinguistic perspective is kind of missing one. But this is really important because why we have to learn the language is the most important thing we have to think of. So lack of perspective that the language of the Ryukyuan people are on the verge of extinction due to the colonialism. But it's really hard to talk about colonialism in Okinawa since like we don't learn our history. By the way, that's our history that we try to show the history of the Ryukyu. But it's really hard. It's really hard to, for like, if you don't know the history, if you don't know the language, okay. So it's really hard to think about our indigeneity, feel about our like indigenous identity. Indigenous movement is really needed, but it's not really easy because traumatized experience as an ethnic minority in Japan, misunderstood the concept of indigenous people. in Okinawa, it's like, don't call me indigenous because we're Japanese. We're good enough. We are so, we have technologies and we have nice buildings, so we are not indigenous. So this misunderstanding of the concept of indigenous language, indigenous peoples are still like we are having nowadays in Okinawa and in Japan. And there's no official recognition from the government. I knew people was recognized in 2008, but Ryukyuan people was kind of left over. And indigenous issues are not so much translated into Japanese. So, it's really beautiful to see the challenges. And here it comes to the United States, United Nations, to see other indigenous groups. It's really precious, but since it's not translated into Japanese, so not many people know about the issue. And so yet, Ryukyuan people have pride as Uchinanchu. So, every year, October 30 is the Uchinanchu Day. So, we have some challenges to lead to that point. So why we came here is to attend the meeting that's the United Nations. That's the Permanent Forum for Indigenous People. Okay, Japan has voted for the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, but has left the situation human rights violation, not recognizing people with the ethnic group in the Ryukyu Islands as indigenous people from the movement to obtain citizenship of Japanese to a movement to restore the rights of Ryukyuans. We're not talking about language itself, but so many other topics like militarization. This is Okinawa Islands. And then those orange things are all the, U.S. military base and facilities, like 32. It's really packed, But they are making another one now. And then there is a plan, another one to make. We are not just sitting. We are doing so many rally, we get together, say no, we do a referendum, and so many things, but it's never heard. So we need to come to UN. This is another issue related to the Victor's one, but this is a form. It's not from the bubble party. It's like, the PFAS is from, forever chemical came from the United States base, and then also the self-defense force of the Japanese base. And then it's reached to the residential area and then our water. The contamination issue is really serious. And so this is beautiful ocean. Can you imagine? It's like a dugong is swimming there, like a huge coral reef. They are living there, but they are actually doing the land crab mission and then to make a U.S. military bases. We already have 32, but they're making some more here. And not only the U.S. military bases, but the Japanese self-defense force bases is made through like Amami to Yonaguni. A lot. They said threatening of China, we have to prepare. But we have experienced the brutal Battle of Okinawa, so we don't want the war again. This is not the, strategic point for the US or Japan, or, this is our islands. We indigenous people living here. So that's our challenge this week. Came here. We want to share our struggle and then also our, we're here. So that's how we came. And then it's really precious to connect with you. So please give us some feedbacks. And thank you so much. Ippei David.
Thank you so much, Shinako-san. We will now move to if you could refresh really quickly.
So we are here with the next generation of Ryukyuans.
Okay. Great, thank you. So we'll pass it over to Victor Kinjo, and then maybe Shinako-san, if there are pieces that you would like to add. I will give you the clicker.
Hajichi Revitalization, wanne Kinjo Victor Yaibin. Hello everyone, my name is Victor Kinjo. I'm a third, fourth generation Okinawan Brazilian. So my grandparents are born in Oroko in the city of Naha, and they immigrated in the 30s to Brazil. So this is for us is like kind of rescuing our roots And I'm gonna introduce myself later because I have another topic to develop. But just to say that I'm also like a scholar now in the University of São Paulo Institute of Advanced Studies, researching about the rivers of Brazil, initially, because I believe also as an indigenous person, like the rivers, they are everything. They are life. They are the water that is inside us too. So and also they are mirrors of society. So when you look to the river of the place, he tells you a lot of stories. And when I had the opportunity to go to Okinawa in 2022 to study the rivers of Ryukyu, and so they are telling this story that they are also telling about colonization, militarization, and now the contamination of our rivers through PFOs. Yeah, so there is a movie that was released 2 years ago, from two journalists, Natsuko Shimabukuro and John Mitchell, and they made a very important investigation about how the rivers of Ryukyu are being contaminated by this substance, which is also called the forever chemicals, so very dangerous. And we would like to show like 5 minutes of this movie just to introduce the topic, but it's online also, so we can share the whole movie later with all of you. Yeah, and then later we're gonna show also a song that yeah, I'm gonna explain this later. Let's see 5 minutes of the movie. So,
アメリカ国立公文書館に保管されていた映像。湧き水を惜しみなく使い、女性たちが洗濯をしています。沖縄県北部、金武のウッカ川。長命の泉と呼ばれ、元日には湧か水を求めて夜明け前から人々が訪れます。
おばあちゃんのところにお裾分けしてお茶飲んでねって回ってます。
うちのおふくろも94歳ぐらいまで元気だったら一人で7名の子供を戦争未亡人で育てて、全部洗濯とかいいもの洗い物は全部こちらで、この水で生きてきてるから。
77年前の沖縄戦で住民の4人に1人が犠牲になり、その後も27年間アメリカの統治下で貧しく苦しい生活を経験した沖縄の人たち。地下から湧き出す恵みの水が人々の命をつなぎました。しかし
もう一日も早く地下水に依存しない飲料水の供給、体制作りが今必要なのかなと思っています。
地下水には知らない間に有害なものが入り込んでいたのです。有機フッ素化合物 PFAS。 焦げつかないフライパン、水をはじく靴や服など、私たちの生活のあらゆる場面で多用されてきました。しかしもともと自然界に存在しないこの化学物質は環境中で分解されにくく、人の体内に入り込むと長く蓄積されることから、今有害性が問題になっています。
発がん性があるんですね。 でもう一つの毒性が発達毒性なんですね。子どもの成長に関わるもので、特に著名なものとしては、体重が小さくなる、生まれた時の体重が小さいという毒性があると。
ヨーロッパ環境庁はホームページで PFAS の影響として甲状腺疾患や肝障害、腎臓がん、低出生体重児などとの関係を指摘しています。国際条約や国内法で規制が厳しくなっている PFAS。しかし沖縄では汚染を止めることができません。汚染源がアメリカ軍基地にあると見られていたからです。
ここに沖縄県が発足したことを高らかに宣言いたします。
沖縄が日本に復帰して今年で50年。しかし国内にあるアメリカ軍専用施設のおよそ7割を負担する沖縄では今になって新たな基地被害が明らかになっています。沖縄で何が起きているのか。水の汚染から沖縄の50年を見つめます。
So I hope that you can hear me. Because I'm trying to make the case for numbers being our friends, for definitions being difficult to find. One number that I think was brought up in the documentary is that now in Okinawa Prefecture, we do host over 70% of the US military forces in the entire nation state of Japan. But what other numbers actually left out of that is Okinawa Prefecture, so dozens and dozens of islands, is actually only 0.6% of Japan's total landmass. So that 70% of US military personnel over 32 bases is on less than 1% of what is now Japan. Some estimates say that Okinawa main island hosts 1/8 out of all the US military personnel stationed outside of the United States. And this is an island, the big island, only 70 miles long and 10 miles wide at its widest. So it's not a very large area as well.
Yeah, and I think what it's very complicated for us, also linked to what Alex is saying, because we don't have a representation. So this kind of problem, this kind of issue, it doesn't go to, it doesn't circulate in the media. Né? So because I live in Brazil, I know that we don't know anything in South America about Ryukyu, Okinawa. Actually, in the whole world, we don't know about many countries. Né? So because the world is very Eurocentric yet, so we're always in the history books, you always study much more about England than about Indonesia or Thailand or Ryukyu, Okinawa. Né? So we have a big challenge in this sense, how can we raise these issues, and that's why we are very thankful that you are here too, so we can share this pain together. Né? And yeah, so I would like to show you now a short video also that I made when I was in Ryukyu. Besides a sociologist, I'm a singer. So actually, in the end of my PhD, I realized as an indigenous person that the song is a very important way of expressing, of communicating with the other. And also, Shinako-san was talking about language. And although we almost there are no speakers or no active speakers of Uchinaguchi currently, we all sing in Uchinaguchi. That's why we wanted to open the event with our songs, because our traditional songs are still a live archive of the language. Yeah, and I also want, I think the contemporary musicians, we should write new songs also in Uchinaguchi. So this is my second album called Earthling. And yeah, so I don't know a lot of words in Uchinaguchi, but I used the words that I knew to make this song. And the video clip is recorded in Okinawa. Oops. This is where the babies were, when born, they were bathed in the springs. Ichariba Choodee. Ichariba Choodee. Thank you. So now we are facing this very serious issue because this water that is contaminated is also the water that 400,000 people drinks. And so, of course, the government, they're saying, oh, we are treating the water and everything, but we know that there's a risk. This is always uncertain. And recently, we are also having a drought for what I was updated this year. And so, like, with the climate change issue, more and more we will need this water, and why our water is contaminated by a foreign military base, which is like the whole population or most of the population is against. So how can we think about democracy in these conditions, and also like just transition, climate justice? I think we have a very big challenge, which is local for us, but is also a global challenge. And I hope we can work together to face this and other very challenging experiences. So thank you. So I'm going to pass the word to Mariko-san, and I'll be back later.
Thank you, Victor. So next, I think we're good. Yeah, we'll just stand and talk. Yeah. So next up, I'd like to welcome co-presenter Ko Lewis, who is joining us to speak on Hajichi. I think that is perfect. Thank you. All right, great.
Okay, hi everyone. Oh, sorry, Mariko. I'm Coach Shigeko Lewis. That was my baby on the last screen. I live here in New York City. I am also a medical school student here. Nice to see some familiar faces. Nice to meet the rest of you. And I hand-poked Hajichi as well. It's the only kind of tattooing I do for diaspora community members exclusively. And I'll be talking a bit about my practice, my approach to it, and what I think our struggles are in reviving a tattoo practice like this.
Thanks, Ko. Hi, everyone. My name is Mariko Middleton. I'm a second-generation mixed Ryukyuan American. I live in Vermont on Abenaki land, and I am in several different world spaces, but one is I'm a co-founder of the Ichariba Choodee, Okinawan Voices and Stories podcast, as well as a Hajiji practitioner myself. And this is an area that is really important to me as part of a visual reclaiming resistance and part of my own identity search. So it's deeply meaningful, and that's actually how Ko and I met together, is through the podcast, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I do want to provide a little bit of framing language that Hajichi, because it is a practice that has been lost, that nobody is really an expert on this. And so what we're presenting today is information that we have compiled through various resources. Ko will take us through the history of that, and we'll talk a little bit about sort of the modernization, how it is showing up in our communities today. Would you like to add anything to that at all?
I'm sure it'll come up. Yeah.
Great.
We'll get there.
Perfect. I'm going to hand you the clicker.
Oh, okay.
And
great.
Feel free to advance when you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. So I won't go into too much background on what Hajichi is. I think most of us know it. It's the traditional practice of Okinawa, the Ryukyus, the language that you want to use for our islands. Hajichi is one of many names. There's a lot of different names. Like we were just seeing, the languages across our islands are really diverse. So while Hajichi is the word that you most often hear used, it's not the name of the tattooing that was done across the islands. The similarity that we share is that our tattoos were primarily hand tattoos, though. And so most of the images that you will see show hand tattoos. And I believe almost exclusively all of the ones that I've included here do. As we go through, though, if you have questions and you're online and you post them, I'll try and answer them and get back to you, and I'm always available to answer questions like that. But what I really want to explore with the community and explore with everyone here is the challenge of finding out information about Hajichi. So the effort to remove Hajichi from Okinawan culture was arguably successful. And when you look at the resources that we have about Hajichi, some of the most thorough ones do argue that it has in fact been erased and that it's no longer a practice that exists at the time that they're recording and interviewing people with Hajichi, which is a little, I mean, it's just ironic. So that's kind of the world that we are rebuilding this practice out of. And most of the resources about Hajichi, like the oldest of them, are very derogatory. So they're referencing the barbaric community's practice that is hopefully to end very soon. And the historians of tattoo inside of Japan who are Japanese, who have explored kind of this history, say that the effort to erase Hajichi and to make it illegal was very slow. So it was brought up multiple times in government to make it a new law, to make it illegal to tattoo. But the thought was that it would be so poorly received that they would wait, and instead would work inside of the school system to educate people out of wanting to be tattooed. So if a girl came to school, she would be punished for having tattoos that were fresh. She would be encouraged to burn them off. There are stories of girls burning them off collectively as well. And I say girls, but we'll get into that a little bit later with tattooing as well. And so the cultural stigma that was built around tattoos is, I think, one we're all very familiar with, especially if you've been encountered the idea of getting Hajichi yourself and talk to any of your older family about that. Sometimes the response is very unsavory. My grandmother still tries to wash my tattoos off every time she sees me with a little napkin. But so that's kind of the cultural context that I want us to have going into this. But more importantly, I think, is the idea that these resources are accurate. So we want to take everything that, I don't want to say we want to take everything, but we would hope that we can use all of the information that we have about Hajichi that's available to us and that we can incorporate it into our practice. But I think that is a little bit of a flawed approach and would instead hope that we'll all come at these resources with what I call just a decolonizing lens. So I had a little list of examples here, but I'm not going to bother pulling it up, except to say that in these older references, the tattoos are often described as ugly. The reasons for why someone would get them are generally a negative idea rather than a protective element, and the different reasons that people get Hajichi. So I think as you read these things, just kind of try and understand where the person writing them is coming from. Let me see if I'm missing anything on this slide before I advance this. Mariko, do you want to add anything?
No? Perfect.
Okay, great. I have a little example here that I think is relevant to some of the conversations today. So this quote that, as a people, the Luchuans can be said to be devoid of religious sentiment. This is following an example of why people get Hajichi. So the idea is they get Hajichi so they don't get kidnapped by pirates because they have no religion. So there could be no religious value to these tattoos. Just one of many examples of the way that they're described and recorded. Okay, yeah, I think we are good here. The other thing I'll touch on actually really quickly is what our tattoos looked like historically. So our records of tattoos are only very recent, and for the most part are all recorded post-ban when the practice of tattooing had been very changed and the ritual components and the different ways in which tattoos were received had already been lost. So you can see a couple of the pieces I referenced here from Chinese emissaries that recorded tattoos to Western explorers who went on their ship tours of the different islands. They describe our tattoos as images of dragons or snakes, later as tigers. Leavenworth there says that we tattoo our arms until they're completely black. So another example of how these are maybe not the most reliable. But also a hint that maybe we have lost some elements of our history and don't know what we have lost. Okay. These are my favorite references in tattooing clients. So when I take a client, I like to do a consultation where we talk about what they know about their family, and then I provide to them the interviews available from people in their hometowns, what they said about their tattoos, what they called them, and what they looked like. And I try and take these guides and get an idea of the variation of tattoos, because it's often claimed that on Uchina Island, everyone's tattoos were exactly the same. And I think if we just go back to this image really quickly, you can see that they're not, well, maybe you can't see actually, but they are very different. So the shapes on the knuckles, the placement of the ichichibushi, the 5-pointed star or 5 stars on the wrist, varies pretty significantly. Most people say it's class-based, but I think there's more nuance to it than that. So I like to try and explore that. But like we said previously, all of these interviews were done in the 80s, and the women at the time getting interviewed were in their 80s or older, some in their 60s, 70s, which means that they were either tattooed in the years just before the ban was placed, which, as we just discussed, meant there was already a significant educational effort to erase Hajichi going on at the time that they were born, that they were very small, before they received their tattoos. And then they would have received their tattoos arguably as early as 4, as late as 12 for their first piece, or in one whole sitting sometime in their near adulthood. So my point is that while these are one of the only first-hand accounts that we have of Hajichi, and I think that's important that they're the women speaking for themselves of what their tattoos looked like and why they received them, they are already painting a picture of Hajichi that doesn't have the history that a lot of us, I think, are seeking to engage with, because they are in a space that is so aggressively changing for them, and at a time when the thing that they're doing is so looked down upon. And a lot of them have family support, and they talk about how, their parents snuck them away to a hajicha who's still practicing illegally and has avoided getting arrested and fined or whatever, and she tattoos them, or they tattoo themselves using ink pens in the fields, like when they're in the middle of working and come home and are like, ha. So their stories vary really significantly. But I think the other point about these survey reports that I want to talk about is just the sad state of affairs of where we are on the resources available to us as diaspora and community and the Hajicha community. Aside from being under copyright, like a lot of the resources about our tattoos are, They're also collector items. So Mariko and I have spent so much time trying to find copies of these pieces.
And money.
And so much money. Each of these has cost us, at least a couple $100s. We've spent up to $400 or $500 on books. We've seen them auctioned for over $1,000. And there are only so many of them printed. They were printed in the 80s. They were an effort by the Okinawan Board of Education to summarize a number of interviews with women that had been done previously by a few different Japanese researchers who thought, Okinawan tattoos were fun and they wanted to, fun is the wrong word, but they decided for whatever reason their interest was in recording their history. So they collected these cards of information on them, and these reports were made in different regional specificity. And sometimes, you'll open them up and it's like an anthropologic report of like the different ceramics in a neighborhood or village, and then it'll get to the tattoos at the end. So they're already being treated like these artifacts of their community, and the ways that they ask them about their tattoos are so heavily guided. So it's, when were you married? How many tattoos did you get before you got married? How many tattoos after? No other questions. Nothing else is of interest to them because they don't think it's relevant. And so I think when we talk about the information that we have on them, we have to be aware of this idea of what we've lost outside of tattooing or outside of the records that we have. And so that's just something I wanted to talk about really briefly here. And keeping in mind that, how do I want to say this? What we do not know, we will never know. And we can speculate about it as much as we would like and try and fill in gaps, but there will always be information that we are unaware of. And so to say that we have an idea of what Hajichi is will, to me, always be a bit flawed, because what is outside of that definition of Hajichi for us is going to be something that we will never be able to learn about. Anthropologic studies are not going to dig up examples of Hajichi in Okinawa Island and be able to present them to us over, I'm using your time. Okay, so I'll be very brief, but I'll just point at these. Tina was a practice of expanding Hajichi over the years, is often related to the birth of your grandchildren. Whether it included the wrist or not, debatable. Which hand was expanded, why, if these shapes were changed or not. This is one of three. There's 3 different shapes this knuckle could be. These are uchina tattoos. That's an element that I feel is not often talked about and not well recorded, because people just recorded what the tattoos looked at the time they were interviewed. I'll skip apprenticeship. It's pretty self-explanatory. The ritual space was really significantly lost. There were whole celebrations around getting your tattoos and receiving them. Family would often sit with you and feast while you were being tattooed, and then afterward, neighborhoods would have entire celebrations. There's some interviews and records of those, and there's a film about Hajichi where they go into it. But a lot of that, is not possible when it's already illegal. So by the time these women are talking about it, those spaces are really gone. The value of Hajichi into the afterworld, postmortem life is really important, and so bodies would be marked with Hajichi, including children if they passed before they received them. So, harking back to that idea that we didn't have religion. And then forearm tattoos. I'll be really brief, but I think this is of big interest to the community, and a lot of people want to talk about it, and so I'll just note it very quickly. On the top right are some recordings of forearm tattoos of a group of men that Basil Hall, a Western explorer, encountered in Idoman when he met a community of fishermen. And so he called these the Idoman fishermen tattoos, and they are protective symbols for the wearers. And I think this is one example of where one person says something, and then it is repeated over and over through the years to the point where we have cemented it as an idea of what our tattoos are. And it is wrong. It just is. Because we have firsthand accounts of people telling us why they received their story or why they received their tattoos when they received them, and they do not match his definition. Does that mean that those men didn't exist? Absolutely not. I'm sure they did. I'm sure these are representations that are very similar to the tattoos they had, and that they were protective symbols for them. These 3 people here are 3 individuals who in the 80s had their tattoos and were able to talk about them. The upper 2 are 2 gentlemen. One of them is the son of a Hajicha. I want to say it's the guy on the left. I can't remember. His mother tattooed him and 7 other friends on his forearm. He has one of the tattoos that's similar to this on that forearm. And I think he had one on his other hand too, so they would come in pairs. He was like 5 or 7 when this happened. This gentleman, he went with his mother to get her Hajicha touched up, which was a very traditional thing, also part of the ceremony that you can ask me about another time. And while she was getting her Hajichi work done, he got his tattoo with his mother, which I think is so beautiful. Hope my son will let me tattoo him one day. And then on the bottom is one of the oldest people interviewed who was able to actively speak about her Hajichi. She is 101 in this photo. Her and her neighbor, who is 98, both had these two forearm tattoos that are often called men's tattoos. And so my suspicion is that these tattoos existed for some time, but because they're not as visible, like the rheumatic tattooing that was done in Okinawa, they weren't talked about. They weren't of interest. You can't see someone walking down the sidewalk and say, oh, they have tattoos. I wonder what that is. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, thank you so much, Ko. I really appreciate all of your knowledge. Thank you. And Ko is an incredible resource for this. I'm going to blow through this really quickly on sort of the forward-moving pieces. So we kind of covered a little bit of historical. Now we're going to go forward. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have Hajichi? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there's 4 of us in the room. That is amazing. For a band practice, we have definitely started to see more representation out in the physical space. Okay, so Hajichi in digital space, social media. Like I said before, I run a small podcast. Our 3rd episode was featured Hajichi, and this is where Ko and I really kind of bonded. So this is back in 2021. We did a 2-parter, and it was met with a lot of positive receptivity. Around the same time, there was a magazine called Shimanshu Nukui. There are 2 issues of this out. The first issue featured Mirantin by Brandon Ng. Victor was talking about bringing Uchinaguchi into modern spaces. Brandon's song Mirantin is all in Uchinaguchi, and the lyrics are here, and it is specifically around Hajichi and not to be ashamed to have it anymore. I will move forward. The second issue actually had an entire category dedicated to Hajichi, which is incredible. These 8 folks, including Ko, submitted articles which were published in the piece. Please, we will link it later. Feel free to support them. It is available in digital and print. I will blow through this. Many of you probably know the famous Laura Kina book. It is written in 4 different languages. It's The Okinawan Princess, The Legend of Hajichi Tattoos. It is written in English, Uchinaguchi, Pidgin, and Japanese, which is pretty incredible. It's very accessible for children and for current folks. Here we have somebody in Okinawa mixing traditional Bingata print and incorporating Hajichi. He goes by Somesenka on Instagram. Here, modern day, in 2000, just last year, many of you folks may know Awich, who is a rapper and singer from Okinawa. To have this kind of visibility of Hajichi out there in the mainstream is wildly incredible. So amazing to see this. I do want to mention Segodon, which is an NHK series, and you see in the series Amami tattoos. So it's really cool to see it not just in America, but also in Japan, where, like we were saying, having tattoos at all is very stigmatized. So seeing that elevated and more commonplace by people that younger generations may respect has been really critical. So I want to center some Hajicha, which are the Hajichi practitioners. We have gone from zero Hajichi practitioners to at least 15 that we know of. Here you can see the Hajicha that are featured on the Hajicha on Instagram. And down here you can see the list of how you can get a hold of these folks, where they're based out of. So US, Brazil, Okinawa, Canada, and then also the methods by which they tattoo. So folks that are doing hand poke or machine. And then also each Hajicha brings a different aspect to the way that they practice the tattoo. And so it can vary from anything that has a particular ritual component to it, which is something that I am deeply interested in, is how do we find that ritual piece as we mark these rites of passage. So please check that out.
Can I jump in on there?
Yes.
I think what is so interesting about revival efforts around something like cultural tattoos is that there is always going to be a different idea of the right way to do it. And it will create some infighting just naturally. Some of us are going to disagree about the ways that each of us is approaching it. But our community, despite those differences, is so communicative within ourselves. We all share our resources. It's so important that we be open like that. But on that website, there's little blurbs of everyone's philosophy, and you can see the way that they individually approach Hajichi, how they talk about it. And so, if you hear from one Hajicha and you don't like the way that you're seeing things, our community is so diverse. There really are so many people approaching this in their own way and finding this space for themselves.
Yeah, thank you. I also just want to add like the gender aspect too. We have trans Hajicha, which is really incredible. We won't dive into it, but the fact that there are people out there that are able to meet other folks where they're at in their journeys in terms of identity and marking their own rites of passage is really incredible. And so I just wanted to highlight, like, leave you on a note of like this historic gathering that happened last month in Oahu, where we organized a Hajichi dinner in Yuntaku. We had over 30 people attend, and 26 people in the room actually had Hajichi, as you can see here. This is probably the largest gathering of people wearing Hajichi in the last century. And so we were able to talk about our ancestors. We felt our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, like in the room. There was tears. We were just crying and just sharing our stories of like how proud our ancestors must be and how resilient we are as a people, especially as women, non-binary folks coming into this space and reclaiming and taking that forward. And so I know Ko was talking a little bit about the different types of Hajichi, but you can see the representation here, including there are some that are blends of different cultures. So kanaka maoli, traditional tattoos blended with Hawaiian tattoos that just exemplifies how diverse we are as a people. And also like the largest gathering of Hajicha in the same room. We had 5 Hajicha all together here. So Aaron, Moeko, B, and myself, and then Aaron has an apprentice who was able to join us as well. Cool, and just like a really quick plug, Ko is going to be spearheading a Hajichi mini-series. Please stay tuned for that. Very exciting. We're going to be covering things like interviews with Hajicha, as well as exploring themes of gender, reclamation, revitalization, modernization, and all of that. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think one thing we talked about was a lack of apprenticeship really briefly. And so I think for all of us in the community trying to decide, like, do we belong in this space? Is it our place to take up room here and be a part of deciding what our future will look like culturally? We're only going to get it right if we have all of our voices in this space. So if you are listening online, you have ideas about how you think Hajichi ought to be, you're interested in having your voice or ideas on this podcast, please reach out. I think we need to have those conversations, and your thoughts won't exist in a communal space unless you bring them to it. So I hope you all will.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. All right. And we'll pass it over to Riku. We are way over time, so thank you so much for bearing with us, but this is also very important. And we'll pass it to Riku. And here's the...
Yeah, shout out to them, Hajichas. Respect. So, hi, Sai. I want to Akami Shimabuku, Akami Shimabuku Riku, Richi Choibin. Unukaman to Pedro Yawata, Warabina Yabishi Gayosai. Kure Wata Shimauti, Warabino Tucheno Naya Bishiga. Yeah, my name is Riku Shimabuku Akami. Shimabuku is my mom's side family name. And the Kama and the Pedro, which is Pedro sounds weird, yeah. We had, back in the day, we used to have the name when we were a child. And we all, for the men, like boys, we got the name from the grandpa. So Kama is my dad's side grandpa's Warabina child name. And the Pedro is my mom's side grandpa. He is born and raised in Oura, Henoko, Upura. But he immigrants to Peru. That's why he got the name Pedro. So that's why I have like carry on the name. And Agari Nakazato Guanome is my grandpa's house name. That's where I'm from. And Sumubara Munchu, which is my family clan name, my Munchu name. So that's me. And Henuku Upura Shidaki, or Henoko Oura Shidake, is where my mom's side family is from. My 50% of my blood belong to the ocean, which the Japanese government trying to kill. And Kanzato Febaru is my dad's Akami family came from. And Gusukube Naku is my dad's side grandma, came from another island, Naku, Miyako. But she was born in Taiwan because of the Battle of the Okinawa. So yeah, she didn't speak. She cannot speak Miyakufutsu. That's why that actually, I had the time チンダミの違いが愛びいたしがようぬ最初の曲。The first song that I sang was the song from Miyako. That song is like a kajadefu for Miyakupitu. So I have to speak up for Miyako because it's my blood. This is what I do. I'm a farmer, and I identify myself as artist, but still underground, but artist too. And I'm the third one who having this farm in my family. My grandpa's older brother, he bought this farm because he said our ancestors was farmer, but they didn't have a farm. They just take care of the people and get money because they didn't have opportunity to get money. So yeah, that's why my grandpa's older brother said, if we bought the land, if we bought the farm, it's gonna be the proof of our living for Akami family. That's why this is something special for me. And then you see the Tuigwa down below. That's the one that I designed. And the Tina in Hawaii, she got a tattoo of this. Shout out to Tina for the District 20. And this is where I'm from. This is my where I grew up, and I'm part of this thing. This is called Hatagashira. It's Nenkwai in Uchina. This is Naha area culture actually, and we believe that this is the woman god. So that's why only man can hold this thing. But there is what we say hatamucha for the people who do this Hatagashira thing. But there is some few ladies who is the hatamucha in other village. And the red one is what I'm representing for my entire life because I'm living the south side of this hood, this neighborhood, Gyoko. And the blue one is the east flag. And this is our whole neighborhood flag, Seishin. And we hold this flag when we have big neighborhood party or for the elementary school kid, graduation party, coming of the age party, those kind of things. And we do michijune, which is walk around the neighborhood and do hatagashira for karizuke in Uchinaguchi. It's we believe this woman god, she brought us happiness to other people. Because I think some of you know Asa, which is for ancestors, but hatagashira is for the people that living right now. That's why for us, it's super important culture for me. And this is the youth of our neighborhood. You could see some elementary school kid, junior high boys. And yeah, this is the community center in my place, Maccabi. And I want to show you one video from last summer, Honen site, which is a big block party, I would say. Then this is the guy. Okay. We wear these black Chinese clothes, traditional clothes, with the fireworks. That brings happiness too. And we're fighting each other. But it's not really fighting, man. We better. It's vibe battle. Which got the vibes. Yeah, this is, so from next month, the season gonna be start. So from May to next year, January, it's the whole season for Hatagashira. We cannot get rest. This is from my good friend in my neighborhood. His sister took this video, so you heard that voice, abunai, because it's so close. Yeah, we have 100 year history of this block party in my neighborhood. So Yeah, okay. And my part of identity, so I show you where I'm from, but also I want to mention that we all the Kampo no Kue no Kusa, which means leftover of the bombing on the island. We are the leftovers. So that's why I want to sing this song. And the person who composed this song, Corbin Fija, this is so sad. He made this song around the 1960s, but he passed away around 1970s, I believe, because of the drunk driver from the military base. He made a song about the war, but he got killed by the, military personnel. So to respect to him, I want to sing this song, and I think this is all of our identity too. That's why I wanted to sing this song. Wakasaru tuchirei kusano yo, wakasaru hanan sachiyo san, wakasaru hanan sachiyo san, 양원 sun uya choden, 간포 shageki는 마트니 나티, 지금은 괴물 모르네란 스티차가디 꾸라짠야 은준완닌 양완닌 간포는 괴노 그사 단디가 단디. And today, for my family, only my family. I mean, I think some of the family having this, back in home, which but yeah, this is the shimi season. Yeah, we going to the family grave, offer the food to our ancestors, and having like small kind picnic in front of our ancestor. And this is the photo of my Henoko side family, my mom's side family, back in I think 1930s, I think. That's my great-grandma in the center. She's dancing. And I actually don't know most of them. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here with them today. So for this shimi thing, we have to be happy. So that's why I want to sing another song, which is Yutakabushi. This was composed by Noborikawa Seijin, as known as Seigwa. He's the one of the legend of our Minyo Kyokai, Minyo community. He's composed this song after the war to give people happiness. I mean, he wanted people to be happy, not sad, because there's a word, Nuchinogu Suji Sabira, which means let's celebrate our life. This is a strong word sentence from the Onahabuten, because he said that if we keep the sadness, the spirits that was killed by the Battle of Okinawa will be I don't know how to say it in English. Doshoumonai. Cannot do anything. Nothing to be done. Yeah, that's why he said Nuchinogu Suji Sabira. And then that's why I love this song. So this is the lyric. 소리 은이게 사리라 아시비노 추라사 닌주노 스나와이 우두티 아시바 유가 후두신 게티 구주유이 구뚜시 사케티 구무라누 소리 운치주라사 아시비노 주라사 닌주노 스나와이 우두디 아시바 And yeah, that's about me. I made this logo like 5 years ago. I don't know if you can see, but in the middle, in top, I said Shimagua, which means island thin. We have another word like Shimanchu, means island people. But I love to use this word Shimagua because the island is every time. Island is first, spirit first, God first, like our ancestral God first. That's why I say like we're island thin, Shimagua, and like my family and like Mariko-san's family, like Achan's family, Victor's family, like all of your family. We went to the world. We spread to the world. I have cousins in Peru, in America. And yeah, that's why we can keep this Ryukyu society strong because of those people. That's why like Shimagua worldwide. I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to, but actually saying, but I want people to say that too. Shimagua worldwide, with the Shimagua, and Shimagua is like everything with the whole, everyone in Shimagua. So yeah, Tandi ga Tandi. That's the thank you from Naku, Miyako language. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Riku. We will now pass it over to Victor Kinjo.
Hello. Hi guys again. So we know each other already now. So so now I would like to talk about water in diaspora and intercultural collaboration. As Riku said, and all the panelists, like we became a diasporic people. And today we are most part of our population is living abroad. So and then I mean for us who were born and grow in the diaspora was always a very complex identity because as Alexis emphasized, like we don't have a representation of Ryukyu nation or identity, so we were always seen as Japanese. And then like I just because of this kind of movement, the research that we has developing, then we are developing or deepening our identity in these ways. I also would like to mention that we have here Professor Anne-Maria Shimabuku from New York University, which is one of our most important scholars teaching here, and it's very important for us to have these books and this thought, because like the grammar that we have usually doesn't we cannot speak through this language, so we have to create new words and new theories, new ways of looking. So thank you very much to be here. And to bring the next generation. Yeah, so as I was saying, and also Riku, like the best way for us to express our identity is music. So as I said, like in the end of my postdoc, I was I started singing when I was a kid, so I realized that to express my Brazilian Okinawan identity, I should maybe sing and write my own songs. So in the PhD, I kind of studied the Okinawan music, but in the sense of indigenous songs, because indigenous singing is not just entertainment. So it's usually there's an action, or you're telling a story that it's not in the books. So when I reached this, I started to also write my own songs, because I think that the traditional songs are very important, but it's also very important that we can create new songs, new thoughts, new theories, because we are here now. So with our ancestors, but with the challenge of the present. So I like to sing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is the song, one of my first songs. It calls Permissão. Sorry. Abre caminho pelo mundo, abre caminho pela vida. Se parar por um segundo, divinal é o céu e a terra. Abrir o coração da gente, corpo, condição e a mente, a semente do presente. Cê pintor, cantor valente, peço licença, minha senhora e meu senhora, pai, minha mãe das doces águas, vô e avó, peço sua bênção. Eu vim de longe, vim de um reino do passado, pra plantar feijão, quiabo, milho, couve, amor, amora. Abre caminho pelo mundo, abre caminho pela vida. Se parar por um segundo, divinal é o céu e a terra. Abrir o coração da gente, corpo, condição e a mente, a semente do presente. Cê pintor, cantor valente. Peço licença, minha senhora e meu senhora, pai, minha mãe das doces águas, vô e avó, peço sua bênção. Eu vim de longe, vim de um reino do passado, pra plantar feijão, quiabo, milho, couve, amor e amora. Obrigado. Thank you. Yes, so as I was saying, my grandparents, they went to Brazil in the 30s. The Okinawan and Japanese immigration to Brazil started in 1908, first ship, and is linked to somehow to the crisis that was happened in Okinawa and in Japan because of the rise of militarism, imperialism, fascism, and one of the solutions that the government created was to emigrate people. So we went to everywhere, to Hawaii and to Philippines, Canada, but especially South America, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, and Brazil, which is the biggest community nowadays. And and of course they suffered a lot, or we actually suffered a lot for the process of integration, very complex. They didn't know the language, and there was a lot of racism also that we can have the words to speak about this experience. for a long time, for decades, we didn't mention these issues of discrimination, and remembering also that the discrimination was from the both sides, because most of the immigrants were also educated in a very like nationalist Japan, so they had a hard time to mix, and not a hard time to mix, but the ideology was this one, like you cannot mix. But we are living in Brazil, né? So and now we are already more than 100 years there. Now this is my family, my grandparents who are born in Oroku, the 4 of them actually, and we multiplied. We became a lot of Okinawan Brazilians. Yeah, although not all of us, we think about that or we engage in an identity like this. Né? Well, I also became a farmer actually, like Ryukyu, after the PhD. So when we discovered this indigenous identity, it's very strong. Né? I was already 30. Né? Oh my God, I'm an indigenous person in a country like Brazil. So we have a lot of representation about that. So we moved to the Atlantic forest, me and my partner Eduardo, and we started to learn. It was the postdoc. Né? Oh, thank you books, very important, this knowledge, né? But also the land, the water, the trees, the birds. They teach us very important lessons. And we've been there for 8 years now. We also have like arts residency. So for those of you that would like to spend some time in Brazil in the Atlantic forest, we are 100 kilometers from São Paulo. And yeah, so we work mostly in performing arts, dance, and music, songs, and surrounded by this Atlantic forest. And now we dreamed this for the beginning, but we are doing now, which is reforestation. So we planted already, I think, 3,000 trees, native trees, and it's been very beautiful to see like how can we regenerate like a small piece of land, and I think it's the technology like that we should implement, like the trees, not just the trees, but regeneration. We have to regenerate the planet, né? So, and then also the waters, it's a rainforest, so it rains a lot. So I started to observe the water everywhere, like falling from the sky, going to underground, and growing into the food, into the trees, the animals, and we drink this water. So we become the water, and then there's waste, and then it comes back. So like the water. And it seems that the water that exists in the world today is the same water from always. So like the water that our ancestors drank is the same water that we have, So, and I mean, as we were saying in PFOs issue, like how come are we allowing, not just Okinawans, as the human beings, like, how come are we allowing that water is being poisoned by military? Or by anything, né? So, yeah. So this is, and this then because of this, like we have a very polluted river in São Paulo, which is the Tietê River, and yeah, as an indigenous person, I could not accept that it was so polluted. So I'm gonna show just a little bit of it, because we made an expedition from the source to the like 1,000 kilometers of river, and unfortunately the river is rectified and there's sewage, there's a lot of trash, and we are in the 21st century, Yeah, so this, like, the river is like this. They make like this with the river. I'm calling straight engineering.
Vem descendo, correndo, trazendo, e eu entendendo que a mata tem pra me contar. A mata diz com muito atento que os bichos lá estão se escondendo à medida que o homem chegar. O rio vem descendo,
yeah, so this foam that you see is pollution.
Entendendo que a mata tem pra me contar. A mata diz com muito atento.
And the river is somehow in a way that you cannot go to the river. There are roads around. So like the city is totally disconnected to this river. So people think There's no way to clean. It's dead already. But a river never dies. Never. So we made this expedition. This is the source of the river, which is still clean. And we started to follow like the whole river and singing also to the waters, which is something that the indigenous peoples always has done. And what is the relation between stopping singing to the river and river pollution? No. So there are also like social movements that are engaged in this topic. So we are not alone. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not going to show everything, but you can see this in my YouTube, Victor Kinjo, and Instagram and all the things. And oh, sorry, I should not do this. Yeah. This will not have time to sing, but yeah. So my topic, thinking about intercultural collaboration. Like if you look to our waters locally, we'll see a lot of things, as I said. Like yesterday, I was coming here, and then I saw like a homeless man. Like he was having an attack, actually, in the streets. And everyone like, I'm busy. But like, and then like a woman, we stopped, like we were like, oh my God, what's going on? You know, he's having an attack. Why are we just passing by? And then we didn't know what to do at the first moment. And then I had a bottle of water. So I said, oh, water. And then we gave him water, and he drank water. He washed his face, and he was much better already, you know. But here, you need $3 to buy a bottle of water. Not everyone has a bottle like this money, you know. And I mean, I think this is New York City. So when I see the homeless people here, I think it's totally unacceptable, you know, because this is the richest city of the world. I mean, if this city cannot find a way to solve this problem, because there is money, there are resources, there are knowledge for that. And everything that happens here is go abroad, go globally, you know, so it's a big responsibility. But it's a very easy way to solve, like free water in the streets, like drinking water in every corner. Why not, you know? And then, yeah, and in Brazil, we're having this problem. As I was saying, we are also working there. And finally, okay, we have a lot of challenges. So I just wanted to finish with this because I think we are in the UN, working with the permanent forum. But when you enter, you see that, oh, maybe this is also part of the problem. I mean, it's part of the solution, but something needs to change. I think the feeling, and like this is the military budget every year in the world. Is like instead of solving our problems, water problems, reforestation, the money, and there's a lot of money in the world, guys, a lot, is going to war. So like the reality that we are living today, like it's $2 trillion, and the UN budget is less than 10,000 billion, which means that we invest more than 200 times in war than in peace. So I think that we have to build now. I mean, we Ryukyuan people, we're going to study identity. We're going to talk about our history, but we also have to build like a vision to every topic, because we should have like a Ryukyuan position about the UN, about Palestine, about what's going on there. Like it's very sad because it reminds us for what happened to us, you know. So I think it's not acceptable that we are in the 21st century watching this genocide, this apartheid happening, like in our smartphones. I know I also suffer. Like, what can we do? But I mean, we are in New York, and I mean, everywhere we should be like talking about that, protesting about that. And I think Okinawan people, Ryukyuan people, we should have a position, because if we don't, we are being represented by the US and Japan, who are supporting NATO and all this discussion. I know this is very complicated. Can I have a final 5 minutes? Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so I suffer a lot, I have to say, in the forest, seeing this news. Like, I feel that, oh my God, what can we do? Né? So I sing, because, yeah, as I said, it's a way also of releasing. Then, yeah, so, then I have this song, Let's Get Along. I composed it maybe some years ago. But then the lyrics, it was not fitting for me anymore, because the world were changed. And then I wrote this new lyric, and now is the first time that I'm gonna show to people. So I'm a little bit nervous, and I need your help, if you can help me. I would like to call here Mariko, and Alexis, can you come also to sing? And Shinako or everyone. Yeah, so, so this is a part of the project, a new project. It calls Amor y Agua. I don't know how many of you can speak also Spanish, because Spanish is very similar to Portuguese. But Amor y Agua means love and water. And then, there is a song. Let's sing. And so the choir is very easy. So if you can help us to sing Let's Get Along, Amor y Agua, we will be very glad. Let's see. Where is the clicker? Oh, thanks. It's okay.
You want to leave the lyrics up?
Yeah, I will need maybe. How do we play?
Is there a way we can click this button on the bottom? It's not a touch screen.
Can I see the lyrics here? This was not released yet, but in the Spotify and YouTube and everything, you can listen to my 2 albums and other singles like in Portuguese and Uchinaguchi and other languages. Thank you. The volume is good there? Eu canto pela paz no céu, na terra. Let's get along, amor e água. Somos todos irmãos, parem a guerra. Let's get along, amor e água. You sing for peace, for love on earth, on heaven. Let's get along, amor y agua. We are all sisters, brothers, mothers, stop the war. Let's get along, amor y agua. Sudão, Israel e Palestina, Burkina Faso, Myanmar, Ukraine, Russia, Nigeria and Syria. Let's get along, amor y agua. Cantamos pela paz do céu na terra. Let's get along, amor y agua. We are all sisters, brothers, mothers, stop the war. Let's get along, amor y agua. USA, NATO, Korea and China, Eurasia, Taiwan e Japão. All life is the treasure, Gucci do Takara. Let's get along, amor y agua. Come for love, my dear. Come to be now. Dar gracias a la vida. Let's get along, amor y agua. Stop the war, genocide, apartheid, and hunger. Everybody has the right to a living and be happy. Mundo, 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 vasto mundo. There is land, house, everything for everybody. We just lack justice, awareness, peace, and love. Ceasefire now. Brasil, Okinawa e Latina, Pacífica, África, toda América. Vamos reformar Nações Unidas. Let's get along, amor e água. Vem, vem viver, sorrir. Vem, vem chorar, cantar. Dar graças a la vida. Let's get along, amor e água.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank a lot, also People's Forum. Please, let's come all to have a picture.
If we could have
too.
the speakers, please
Yeah.
join the stage so we can have a final.
This is a very special place and very important because it connects like worldwide, international social movements from different parts of the world. And it's so important that we have a moment and a place to exchange experiences, ideas, songs, and joy and sadness also, places for meeting. So thank you so much.
We're not really going to do like a formal Q&A, I think for time, but also like if you have questions, we're going to stick around. So please like just come ask us. I think that's going to be more fun anyways.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Ne? Say it again. Oh. Katashi. Could you please advance the slide?
Yeah, because the Uchinanchu people, like we usually we end
If you could, please.
our gatherings with dance.
Yes.
A specific dance called kachashi that we would like to invite all of us to come to stand, please, if you can.
Can you please? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And well, yeah.
Imichi
That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Ippenihe debitan. Thank you very much. Any last words from anyone? Shinako? I think Shinako-san, maybe some final words. Yes. Please.
Okay. Ippenihe debiruchuya siriga fuyabitan. Thank you very much for being here and then watching us today. And we really like to share our struggle, our indigeneity, and also we like to learn from you too. So let's get together and then keep in contact and then see you again. Ippenihe debitan mata yatai.
はい、お疲れ様。
Only a little bit over time. That's good. All the time.
And then people